Calling the regular commission meeting, excuse me, I'll try that again. I'm calling to order the regular commission meeting of November, today's date is
20th.
20th, 2013. I know that is. Will you all join me in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to alter the agenda a little bit. Last week, of course, we had the procession and the services for Lieutenant Lipke, who was killed in the line of duty 2 weeks ago, Sunday. And I wanted an opportunity to talk a little bit about some of my impressions of the ceremony and the service and how it affected me, and give the opportunity for any of the members of the commission or staff to speak. We'll then go into citizen comments, but if we have citizens here who wish to make comments, we'll put them at the beginning of the comments list, and then anybody wants to talk about other issues, and we'll follow up with that. Depending on how it goes, we might take a bit of a break between the comments about the procession and so forth. One of the reasons I wanted to do this was I had the privilege of being with the Chief Band and the former Chief Conrad and our city manager in the vehicle I was in. And we had a talk radio station on, and they were taking calls about the procession. And one person called in and said it was a waste of taxpayers' money. And, of course, I felt kind of angry about that, but I wanted to take some time to think about it in a collected form. We have two special days of remembrance that we give to people that have served us in the armed services. One, Memorial Day, specifically directed to people who lost their lives in defense of the country, in defense of the policies that we had that led them into war action. We had those dates. We don't have a special date for those that fall in the line, that die in the line of duty, that are in the either the fire or the police. We do during May have a special week that we recognize, and a special day that when we recognize fallen officers, but we don't have a holiday for that. And my guess is if you would look at, for example, Memorial Day, if you were talking about the cost of that, well, it's a tremendous cost. I mean, almost all public agencies are closed down. People are still being paid. Many private sector businesses closed for Memorial Day, and a lot of their people are being paid. And that cost probably dwarfs completely the cost that we had in the procession and the service. When we were there, the commission and the staff were seated in bleachers directly to the left and above the area where Officer Lipsky's family and friends were, and the Oregon City police officers were there. And it was very clear as we looked at them how they felt the impact. I don't think at the end of the service there wasn't a single eye among the police officers that weren't watering up, and everybody else too. The recognition of their commitment, I think, is extremely important, and it's the only time that we are able to do that. Having people coming from all around and recognizing that loss, I think, is tremendously important. It had a personal effect on me that I hadn't thought about, something I had never thought about. I had a great-grandfather who was killed in the line of duty. He was a police officer in Pueblo, Colorado at the turn of the last century. And I knew this story. We got newspaper articles. his death was a little bit bizarre, but and it made an interesting story. But the day after the procession was the first time I ever thought about the terrible experience my grandmother must have had at that time. She was a young teenager, had two brothers, her mother, and I don't think I ever thought at all about the impact of his death on the family. It just didn't occur to me. And without that procession, I don't think I would have ever reflected on it at all. So that's something that I would say benefited me as an individual. Anybody else wish to speak?
Yeah, I do. Well, I had a similar experience in that I was totally overwhelmed, didn't know what to expect. But after it got going and our car became entirely silent, I was riding with Carol and Betty and Rocky and myself and Officer Booker. And it was so overwhelming to see the support and the tears and the salutes and the waving. What it also showed me was, in the midst of such a horrific tragedy, there's a good side to humanity out there. And that's the thing that I came out of it with, just very, very thankful that there is that good side. And that the officers and the people in the procession had the opportunity to witness that. And then to think about how far some of those people came from, from Chicago and Canada and different places to be in that procession. It just was overwhelmingly magnanimous of outpouring of human empathy and concern and care for someone.
Any of the staff do?
Yeah, I don't know if I want to say much because I don't know how long I'll last. I agree with what Kathy just said. What a powerful day that it was, and I knew it was going to be a hard day, and just seeing the community support, not only on the day of the service and the celebration, but the procession. In the days following, and still today, and still going through the week and beyond, the signs around town and the ribbons and the fundraisers and it just makes me happy to be living in this town. And, lived in this town my whole life, may continue to live in this town my whole life. It's an amazing place, and we all know that. We see that every day. But even in weeks like this, which has been so tragic, there's just so many amazing moments that I'll never forget. I'm just so proud of the staff. I'm so proud of the police department. It just is an honor to be on a city commission for a city where there's such amazing people and such an amazing commitment to serving this community. It was extremely hard for me, just not on a city level, but a personal level, seeing my sister and seeing my nephews, trying to make sense of it as a police family, seeing my dad, who worked his entire career as an Oregon City police officer, see his coworkers that I grew up with going on camping trips, come back to Oregon City to be together. It was just it was a lot. It was a lot. Just incredible support for the community and for the police department, and I'm just so thankful for all of you and Jim for what you have been able to do in the last few weeks, and I really thank you. Thank all of you.
I have something to say. As Kathy mentioned, our car was silent, and we were rendered speechless, which is something considering everybody that was involved that was in the car. It was so overwhelming and emotionally exhausting and wonderful at the same time to see all of the support from the community, all different ages of people, the school kids out there, elderly people, people in wheelchairs. People were coming out, and I felt that it's bigger. This is about Officer Lipke, but it's bigger. It's about acknowledging every day that the officers get up and put on that uniform, that they are risking their life and limb to provide us with safety and freedom, and what their families must go through every time they step out that door. And it's particularly rough for my sister as a widow, and just thinking about, growing up without the father and just the road ahead. And I just want to, encourage people to remember and keep it fresh in your mind what our police officers do every day, and not to forget that. And I do think we need a holiday to honor or a day of observance to really keep that fresh in our minds, and realize that every time they get a call, they are doing it for our safety and our freedoms and to protect us.
So I would have to say it was a very overwhelming experience. And I actually had read an article in the paper with a comment about what a waste of taxpayer dollars. And that was from people that just didn't understand, I think, the impact that we do take it for granted. We just assume that somebody's going to go answer the phone when we call 911 and they're going to come and take care of the situation. And so this was a real reality check, I think, for all of us. And I know that we totally support our police staff. And we've got great police, and we've got great firemen out there. And it's sad that the people that make those comments, they just don't have that experience, I think, that we have gone through with the town that we have and our great citizens and how they've all stepped up. And it was amazing to see the officer's wife and what she was going through. I just wanted to go down there and give her a big old mommy hug. But just knowing that, she's going to be raising that baby on her own with our police by her side, I'm sure. Yeah. Because one thing the chief did say is, it's amazing when she becomes 16 years old and there's a couple of police officers at the door when the boys come around.
When they disappear.
When they disappear, yeah, when the boys start disappearing. So it was very overwhelming. I want to thank our community for coming together. There was, I know, people in wheelchair and the kids on 205 out of school. The kids were all lined up, and all the way into Portland there was just different people standing around and waving and signs of thank you. So it was truly amazing.
Anybody else that wishes to speak? Come forward.
Marge Hardy. I'm sorry, I too will probably break up, Rocky. We had just come home from the World War II Museum in New Orleans. We were on the edge. Anyway, after an in-depth experience, and Rolla, again, my husband, saying goodbye to his father from that conflict, as well as his uncle. My daughter is a police officer. My son-in-law is a police officer. And the idea of the support, the community support, we were standing by the Carnegie, by the library, and those kids walking from St. John's School, holding hands, not a word, quiet. They knew exactly what was happening, and they knew what to do. The entire community showing the respect. And I'm absolutely aghast that people would consider this a waste of taxpayer money. As my daughter very often would say, you can't understand unless you've been in the shoes. Mm-hmm. That bond, the brotherhood that you're a part of, and that is so necessary with those. And we see that, and we appreciate it.
And just to add on to that, we had all of our officers attending the service, and the only way we could do that to have our citizens protected was to have different agencies come in. I did have the opportunity to speak with one of the Gladstone officers when I came back and thanked him for coming over and helping out. So I don't know if we should go to all the cities and say thank you, or...
We are, we've got a whole plan in place about how to thank them. That was a very crucial, probably one of the most crucial ways that we were helped, is not just for the service, but for the first couple days. I think the first 48 hours at least. Yeah. Everybody was home with their families dealing with this. And it was because the city was being covered by OSP, Clackamas County, and every city that's around here.
Yes. So is there something that we should do as a commission to...
You think
about that.
Why don't I talk about it with David, and we'll get back to you.
Okay.
Because I think that would be a great gesture.
Because it was amazing to see all of the different law enforcement agencies involved in that. Mm-hmm. It was amazing.
Come on.
William Gifford, Oregon City. I don't want to belabor this, but I have to say that I take offense to someone intimating that was a poor spend of taxpayer money. I saw posting on Facebook that somebody was actually criticizing the delay in traffic that it caused. Mm-hmm. Boo-hoo. And I just have to say that I cannot imagine why the question of honoring someone who gave his life for our community, if that's not what our taxpayers or dollars are for, I can't think of a better reason. I think it was a good, just, and right thing for us to do, and I'm proud that we did it.
Anybody else? If you want to, any kind of words that you...
Just a thank you. The procession, the thing that's amazing about the procession, that just for me watching our group of people, is and I saw it the first time we all met as a group on Monday. You're looking at a bunch of faces, and it's officers and their spouses, and I know the question on their mind: why am I in this line of work? And I could go be an electrician, and nobody's going to shoot at me. and so making sure that these people that we've taken time to vet and train and get to know, and they get to know the community, that procession reminds them why that what they're doing is worthwhile, how much the community cares about them. Most cops who've been cops for a while, you no longer get surprised by what people are capable of, and not in a good way. But people are capable of horrible things, and I know that what we've seen has surprised every one of us in the good way. We've all been just shocked at the outpouring from Mike's drive-in to everything. And I know that it has made a huge impact, and it has reminded them why what they're doing is noble and needed, and all the things that you all just said. You guys get it, the community gets it, and I'm proud. I've been in other processions and other cities. I've never seen something like this, and I've heard that from several other people. We are blessed by this city. We're blessed to serve this city, and the entire department thanks you and the community for everything. We're back at work. We're doing well. It feels good to be back at work, to be moving again, and it's still going to be a long road, and there's still going to be things that pop up, and things popped up the first day, just little triggers and things like that. But I just thank you is not big enough, but thank you.
Can I say one more thing? As many of you know, both of our sons live in Washington, D.C., and I've talked to them several days about this thing that's going on and what Jim said about being so proud of this community. Every time I talk to them, I tell them, well, today is this, and today is this, and there's funds set up and all. And every day they say, I can't believe this is still going on. I can't believe this is still going on. And then the older one said to me today, he says, home really does sound nice right now. Because you wouldn't see that there.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to add, too, was one of the citizens that actually went to the service was Larry Hanlon. He's very active in the Caulfield Neighborhood Association. It was his great-uncle that was killed in the line of duty in 1906. Officer Hanlon was his great-uncle, and I was not aware of that until I went there. Yeah.
Yeah. That's.
Yeah. I asked him, isn't it the same name? And he said it was his great-uncle.
History on that.
Yeah.
So wow, I didn't know that.
So.
I might say that, so I was in the car with you and our current chief and our former chief, and between the four of us, I added it up. There's about 100 years of public service experience, much of it law enforcement, in that car. And we knew what to expect, at least the three of us with law enforcement experience. We knew what to expect. And we were still so moved by the time we got to the Carnegie Library. I was in the back seat, and I looked up, and every one of the tough guys in this car with me were doing this at the same time, because the kids is what kind of pushed us over the boundary of emotion there. And while we knew what to expect, what we didn't expect, any of us who expected a turnout, we thought there would be a turnout. We didn't expect to see people stacked up 3 and 4 deep on virtually every part of the Oregon City route. I didn't expect to see veterans that were older than my dad standing in the median in the rain at a salute. I didn't expect to see those things. It was fantastic. So, and one of our officers, who I won't name, but we would probably describe them as one of our saltier comrades, said to me, just a spontaneous remark at the room there, said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe how much they care." And that person had been in enforcement a long time, but had never. This is my 4th one of these funerals that I've been to, and I hope I never go to another one. But I agree with you, Jim. It's the only one I've ever seen the intensity and the sort of the personal nature of the signs and the flags and the things that people are holding up. There's really a heartbeat in Oregon City, and you warned me this place was a special spot and it would grow on you. He tried to warn me, and it's a unique place, and we're very privileged to serve our community and to be part of it. thank you, Jim, for your department and what they do.
On behalf of all of them, you're welcome.
With that, we'll go into regular citizens' comments. And we have on the floor Amber Holdeck and Marge Harding. Want to come over? Sure.
Oh. Did you give me a job for this?
Oh,
it's fine. Okay.
We're all going to get them.
Good evening, City Commission. I'm Amber Holbeck, Executive Director for the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce, and thrilled that I was up next officially because it ties in very nicely with our last topic. It's my pleasure, it's my privilege actually to share with you another fundraiser. Yes, the fundraisers do go on, and I think there's a lot of life ahead for Mrs. Libke and their child, and we want to help bridge some of that gap. So in conjunction with McLaughlin Place Senior Living, the Oregon City Chamber, and hopefully, I don't know if you're noticing the fine print, and Oregon City Commissioners and City staff, we would very much like to have your group consensus okay that we can promote this event with something that City Commissioners and staff would like to be a part of. It's one of those good old-fashioned pancake breakfast fundraisers. McLaughlin Place is really rolling out the carpet, making this a great event, a great fundraiser. We've got donations coming in for all the goodies. We're suggesting an $8 donation for each breakfast, and there will be bracelets being sold and all kinds of other things. If you don't have time for a sit-down breakfast, if you're a member of the community, then we'd like to serve you through our drive-through service. And so we just want to make it as easy and fun and feel good as possible. We'll have some of our friends with Clackamas Fire District out there filling boots along Molalla Avenue. So we should probably warn the Oregon City Police Department. There might be some traffic issues around that area.
Jim's like,
So,
You're telling us to arrest firemen.
I didn't say that exactly, but
That's what I heard.
That's what I heard. Okay, I like that.
So the other piece is that we are working with some of our local TV stations to see if they can share one of their personalities with us to cover that event that morning. So that 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock time may become 6 a.m. to 9 o'clock, but I have places for people to serve coffee, to take people's donations, to be runners, greeters, hostess, table cleaners, you name it.
You can count me in.
So I know we've got Betty on board, and I think Carol Pauley signed up earlier today. So with your okay, may I publicize this with Oregon City Commissioners and City staff?
Absolutely. And for those that want to know, it's December 10th, 7 to 9 a.m., maybe 6, at McLaughlin Place, 1153 Molalla Avenue, Oregon City.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Great.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Chief Van.
Thank you very much for doing that.
You're welcome.
This time you got to identify yourself.
I'm Marge Harding, live in Oregon City, and this is probably rather inappropriate for a conversation that we've had, except for one thing that our city manager said, and Rocky made the comment, the heart of Oregon City and how much Oregon City has a heart. I know when I was writing this out, I kept thinking, this is silly that I'm doing this. Why am I doing this? And it's because I have a passion for Oregon City and the story. And so if you will be patient with me, I will read this. I am like many, I have a passion for Oregon City, its people, its history, its buildings, its rivers, and especially its story, the puzzle. It is the puzzle story I wish to speak to. Oregon City has all the pieces to the story, but we can't seem to put them together. Name of this puzzle is tourism in Oregon City. Geez, was anybody surprised that I was going to talk about tourism? The puzzle is at times close to successful, then the middle falls out, and once again, we are left with fragments struggling to find their connections. This is where we seem to be now. Not only are we struggling to find our direction in the story, we have lost another part of getting there, our trolley. Not only does this struggle continue today, but it has been the ongoing saga for Oregon City the last 30 years at least. This last July, we had a guest in Oregon City from Washington, D.C. His name is Dr. Robert Sutton and is the chief historian for the National Park Service. It so happens that Dr. Sutton lived in Oregon City for 10 years, from the mid-70s to the mid-80s. He became then Oregon State Park superintendent, then Fort Vancouver superintendent, and from there went to D.C. When he lived here, he worked hard as a citizen to get the Liberty Theater, the Opera House, drugstore, and other buildings on the National Registry, as there was no Oregon Preservation or Tourism Organization at the time. As he worked towards these goals, he said he was told by some citizens and the state, quote, "Oregon City is of no historical significance for preservation or tourism." At that time, he worked with citizens and volunteers such as Ruth McBride Powers, who worked very hard to create tourism at the dump, as it was called, tourism at the dump, in restoring and recreating Oregon City. But they struggled and are still having, and we are still having the same struggle. We have come a long way, but we still need to put the puzzle pieces together and have a leader who will be the centerpiece to hold it all together. Now, all of this is, in my purpose in being here tonight, is to ask, please, create a tourism leader, director, etc. position, whatever you want to call it, to help Oregon City in this ongoing struggle. Please don't dump it on a department or someone already overloaded. Don't give it to a business organization or a business or organizations. That has been tried very unsuccessfully. It is time Oregon City becomes truly a destination, and lest we forget, tourism is economic development. Please consider this and don't wait another 20 or 30 years for possibilities. The time is now. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if you're aware of it, but the State Historic Preservation Office looked at nominations and approved them to go to what they call the Keeper for the McLaughlin Promenade, the Carnegie Building, the Elevator, and the Masonic Lodge. So they will become part of the National Register.
More points
That's right.
for this.
Yeah.
I've got to tell you, it's going to take time, a couple minutes. In one of our conversations on the phone with Dr. Sutton, he, out of the blue, said, "Oh, by the way, have you ever heard of the Ermitinger House?"
Maybe.
Oh, do you think I lost it?
How long was he on the phone after that?
He said that he helped Mrs. Powers in the research of all of the buildings that she was doing. He wanted, or she had asked him to see if he could research and find this elusive Ermatinger house, which he did, and he found the house. So Dr. Sutton, who is the big cheese now in D.C.,
That's right.
found her house.
Good. Thank you, Mom. I guess we have no others then? Do I hear adoption of the agenda? Anybody want to pull anything off the consent agenda? Okay, having no desire to do it, we'll go right into the public hearings. And this is establishing right-of-way usage fee rates and application fees for public utilities operating with the City of Oregon City's right-of-way. This has been before us before, and we're going to get a staff report.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. On November 6th, 2013, the City Commission adopted ordinance number 13-1014, which amended Title 13 of the Oregon City Municipal Code. It added a new chapter relating to utility facilities in public right-of-way. It deleted a portion of a chapter, utility wires and poles, and amended Chapter 12.04 on streets, sidewalks, and public places, and Chapter 13.24 telecommunication facilities. The ordinance set forth that the new fees established by the ordinance would be set by commission resolution. And so tonight on your agenda is the right-of-way fee resolution for your discussion. But before I'm going to turn this presentation over to our attorney, Nancy Werner, I'd like to submit for the record a revised resolution that corrects one minor error. The date of the enactment of the right-of-way ordinance is actually November 6th, not October 16th, as is written on that. So that was just a mistake there. And also, for the record, a letter from Clackamas County regarding the right-of-way fees. So at this point, I'd like to turn this over to our attorney, who is with us this evening by phone, and I need to put the microphone on her, so one moment. Still there?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for having me by phone tonight. Nancy went over the background of why this fee resolution is on the agenda for tonight, so I'm just going to very quickly go through the fees that are pretty clearly set out in the resolution. The first are 2 application fees. These are fees that will be paid by an applicant in submitting their registration or license application. It's fairly typical to have a application fee associated with this kind of thing, as there are costs related to it. The second fee, which is Section 3 of the resolution, is the main fee. This is very similar to the existing franchise fees that the city collects, and the rates for the percentage of revenue are established at the rate of the current franchise fees for any utility that has a current franchise. So it shouldn't be a significant change for any existing franchisee. We have the same percentage of revenue. One change from the existing fee structure is the minimum annual fee. This is a fee that a facility owner would pay if it is greater than the amount that would be calculated by the percentage of revenue or the communication provider said per $275 per foot that you see up in the chart on Section 3 of the resolution. And the idea of the minimum annual fee is just what it says. If you have a certain amount of facilities in the right-of-way, you're having an impact on the right-of-way, and there's a minimum cost to that and a minimum payment that should be due to the city for that. In Section 4, we have an attachment fee. At this time, we're not aware of anyone that would be subject to the fee. This is not a fee for wires that are attached to poles. That is covered by the right-of-way usage fee that I just described. The attachment fee is really only in the event that there is an entity that has, for example, an antenna on a power pole in the right-of-way, and they don't string any wires across. the city. They just have one attachment that's not connected to any other pole, and that would be a flat fee per pole that is used. And so that is a very quick summary of the fees that are on here. I think we've had many discussions about this over the months we've been considering this. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay. Any comments from the commission or from staff? Additional comments?
Well, just one thing to note that while the fee resolution will go into effect November 6th, so then if that occurs, then we will be, to the extent we need to, negotiating, of course, letting all of our providers know. I've actually communicated with all of them, or our attorney or Nancy has. And while the rates begin to apply November 6th, we are not going to actually insist on collecting all of those until July 1. And that gives our right-of-way users time to adjust their budgets and make other modifications that they might need to meet the obligation.
Very good.
July 1, 2014.
Yes. But we would be collecting retroactive to this date, the effective date.
Any additional questions or comments from the commission? Hearing none, go ahead.
I think we've discussed it a lot. I've asked my questions. So.
Okay. We have John Ludlow and Don Krupp. In that order. Since you were second one time, I'll make sure you want to get first this time.
He's watching out for you, John.
I was going to go first.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, my name is Don Krupp. I am the county administrator for Clackamas County. Actually, this is the first opportunity I have had to address a city council since my arrival here at Clackamas County, so I'm very happy to be able to join you tonight. I should note that the issue before you tonight is one that is important to the county. Chair Ludlow and I came here tonight while we were attending a conference down in Eugene. It was important to us to come and visit with you this evening. We'll probably be heading back down there this evening, so if we can attend the rest of the conference tomorrow and then Friday. So I want to thank the Commission for giving us an opportunity to be able to speak with you about this matter. I also want to thank your City Manager for his help and assistance in helping us work through the issues and concerns that the county has. And I also want to say that we fully recognize the appropriateness and the necessity for the city to be able to regulate the placement of utilities and the maintenance of those utilities within right-of-way of Oregon City, that those utilities that don't belong to Oregon City, to be able to recover costs that might be associated with their presence there. And in the case of Clackamas County, you know, we have a number of facilities that actually lie within your right-of-way. There are street lighting facilities, signal facilities. We have county right-of-way easements that include storm drains that are within the city, and my understanding is the ordinance does not apply to that particular circumstance. And my understanding is that the resolution tonight and the fees would have a de minimis effect on our street lighting and our signaling facilities. The fiber cable that we have is, I understand, is covered by the franchise. So the issue really before us to talk more specifically has to do with the Tri-City mains that lie within city right-of-way. And in that case, it's important to recognize that that's not really the county per se. It's a special district. And so we actually put a different hat on. As Chair Ludlow is here, he's really serving as the chair of the Tri-City District. I'm actually serving as the administrator of the Tri-City District. I changed my hat in speaking to you tonight about that particular issue. And in that case, it is unique and it is different with regard to the relationship between the district and the city. As you are deliberating and potentially taking action on this resolution this evening, one of the issues we have is we can't exactly conclude tonight what the financial implications will actually be for the district. What we do understand is that the strictest reading of the language would apply the 6% of gross revenues to the district, and if it were applied as strictly as it's stated, we estimated that the cost would be as much as $380,000. My understanding is that the actual application of that term gross revenues only applies to those revenues that are raised from the city and not the district as a whole. And in that case, the liability would be $190,000. I should let you know that we would have to incorporate that cost into the rate structure for the district. And depending then on how that rate structure is distributed, either throughout the district as a whole or to Oregon City customers, that cost to Oregon City customers could range anywhere from 50 cents a month to a little over $1 a month. And I think that's important to recognize. And obviously, with that kind of an impact, we would certainly prefer the consideration of the application of the annual minimum charge. That fee, we estimate, would be about $15,000. It would represent a de minimis effect on the district and the ratepayers. My understanding too is that might not be a possibility given the language of the resolution, but instead we may be obligated to negotiate a franchise, and the terms of which we'd only know after a negotiation took place. So I had included in my letter to you a concern about double charging, and I'd like to take a moment to explain that for you. I understand that there has been some clarification about that, but it's important to think through what possibly could happen if we aren't paying attention to how that works. So my understanding is as you're collecting rates from customers, you're collecting the cost of doing business and providing services for your own utility, but also collecting the cost of being a part of the Tri-City. And if gross revenues applies to that total structure, you'd be taking 6% off the total structure. And then the revenues that Tri-City would receive from the city would also have that same 6% applied to the revenues, essentially being assessed against that Tri-City portion of the rate twice. Now, my understanding is that there's a clarification for that to make sure that that's not the case. But if we incorporated that 6% into the rate, then you'd essentially be charging Oregon City customers twice for the 6%. We want to make sure that in no circumstance would take place. So I'm going to let Chair Ledlow take it from here, but I do appreciate the opportunity to share with you our current concerns, to let you know what our preferences are, our interest in continuing to work with you to make sure that we come up with what will be a fair and equitable solution.
Well, first of all, I really appreciate being here from the commissioners. As many of you know, I was at that memorial, by the way, and I think I couldn't imagine being in Chief Hart's position. I would not have been able to hold it together. It didn't, as it was in the stands at when the final call was played. It
that was hard.
broke everybody's heart. That said, not on so much of a happier note, I'm here again. And we were here last time asking, what will this cost? What will this cost? Now, a month has gone by. A month. And we still don't know what this will cost. Ironically, I feel like I'm here representing the ratepayers in Oregon City. You see, because just this year, I'll recall that we had a luncheon, David and Doug, and we talked about that you were a little bit aghast that the rates were raised $1. And it was for actual services. It was for services. And now here we are possibly talking about another $1 raise, and it's not us. And the people will complain. I got filled in a lot about how many phone calls and letters you get, how outrageous the wholesale rate that we give to Oregon City was, and how much that $1 hurt. And here we are talking about $1 not to fix your groundwater infiltration problem in your pipes, not to have anything to do with the sewer system. This is strictly a revenue-gaining tax. And 6% of the gross, I mean,
it's the gross. Folks, we don't even take into account the costs involved deducted from that. And this will be, as they call it, a pass-through. It's just like, I don't want to say it's tantamount to this, but it's like shoplifting. You know, we all say, you know, shoplifting is bad. Well, you know, guess who pays for shoplifting? Us, when we go in that store. In the same sense, we're going to pass through this exact cost on to your ratepayers. And they will call you, and they will let you know what they feel. And as Mr. Krupp says, another disconcerting thing is that we don't believe, even though we're told repeatedly that this may be the, as Mr. Krupp would say, the de minimis, the $15,000 charge, and yet now it seems like we're talking at a minimum $190,000. And I don't understand how 30 days can go by since we were last here, and we still don't know the figure that will be charged. It is. We don't understand. We've got our county attorney on it, Mr. Krupp and other staff on it. The communication has been there, but there's been no result of that communication. There's been no exact figure given to us as to what we will have to raise it to pass through to your customers. And they are truly our customers too. As Don said, you know, we all wear different hats, and you do too. And the hat that I have on right now is that I am the chair of that group that has to pass those costs on to your ratepayers. I was sitting with Martha Schrader telling her today what we had to do this evening. And Martha reminded me that she taught Rocky Smith math. And now you can admit it or deny it, but she said, I taught Rocky Smith math. Well, here's the math. We're going to pass through exactly what you charge us. And I don't think it'll be a happy day for your ratepayers, but you just remind them who charged this. It isn't us this time. It's you. And so I would hope that we will see some definitive numbers soon. I appreciate talking to Mr. Frazier. He's been great to talk to on this thing, but he is not able to speak with the force and effect of this body. And this body has to tell us what they're going to be charging. And then, of course, we'll let you explain that to the ratepayers. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Thanks for driving up here.
Yes.
William's on too.
Okay. Thank you. I'll put William before David Frazier.
City Commissioners, my name is William Gifford and I live in Oregon City. There's no such thing as a free lunch. And I think that honorable people contend that we have to pay our fair share. Nobody's looking for a free ride. I think that everybody feels in their hearts that they ought to pay what it costs to provide services. I'm a little chagrined, perhaps, to hear a phrase such as consideration of comparing what Oregon City is attempting to do, which I consider to be an equitable solution to a complicated problem, to be compared to shoplifting. It's a bit sensationalist, and I take offense to that. I think that it should be solved based on economics. I sincerely do not believe that either the county or the city is trying to gouge one another. I think it's pretty obvious to me that the city is within the county and that we are county residents as well. As a matter of fact, we're a large number of county residents. I don't know what the percentage of the population is, but I think that we have the right and the obligation to our citizens to charge what it costs us to provide them with the services that they deserve.
Thank you. I don't think it's changed. No? David Frazier?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to address one comment and a couple of comments that were raised in the testimony from county officials. One is the contention that we're raising this revenue to, I guess, just to have it for the sake of having it, and we're not. We're actually going to use that revenue to put into our general fund to provide services in the right-of-way, costs directly associated with policing, paving, acquiring, maintaining that right-of-way. If we charged the maximum under your new fee ordinance, we would still be, at the end of that, if we charged every single user the maximum allowed under any interpretation of the ordinance, we would still be millions of dollars short of what it costs us to police, acquire, pave, maintain, and operate and manage the right-of-way. So this is only a very small piece. And I think Chair Ludlow brought up an interesting point about passing along the costs. That, as my understanding from our attorneys, more likely would be passed along to all users of the district instead of just the Oregon City portion of the district, because it's a district expense. So Gladstone, if Tri-City had lines there, Gladstone could have an ordinance like this. West Lynn, just FYI, is working on an ordinance like this one right now. So other cities are going to probably take similar action, and there may or may not be Tri-City lines in those cities. I don't know that. I have talked to West Lynn about the cost. They do have some lines in our city, and they will be qualified for the minimum annual fee, and they are okay with it. So there's not a problem there. And then the last piece I want to mention is, while the 50 cents to $1 would be appearing in all likelihood on Tri-City customer bills throughout the district, right now the cost of maintaining that right-of-way is only borne on the backs of our tax-paying homeowners, property owners inside the city. And as we know, there are many that are exempt inside the city. So it's a wider distribution of those costs. And I say, as a bus rider, welcome to the bus, and we're glad you're on with us, and all of us can help pay that bill. But I think it's a broader way of equitably managing right-of-way costs, but it's certainly not going to recover what the actual costs are. So thanks.
I want to make a point so everybody understands it. We're charging, whichever is greater, that one rate or 6% of gross revenues. It applies to water lines, sanitary sewer lines, stormwater sewer lines, and facilities in the right-of-way. No matter whose it is, Oregon City will pay it.
Do pay it.
And do pay it. Clackamas River Water has lines, they will pay it, or the minimum. If it's a minimum, it's not the minimum, it's a higher percentage at the other rate. Applies to west sewer systems coming into their facility. It applies to everybody, and I don't know why one entity feels it deserves an exemption when no other entity would get it. Does our attorney want to say anything, since she's on the line?
I just wanted to address this point or question about potential double taxation, just to make sure it's very clear. I did check with the city's finance director to verify that the city does currently pay a 6% fee on the sewer services, but only on the city's collection services, not on the treatment fee that goes to Tri-City. So there would not be a double collection issue. I just want to make sure that's very clear.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Smith.
My comment would be that I hope city staff is forwarding any phone calls regarding Tri-Cities and its rates to the county commission, because as we were told at our last meeting, the board has all say in what happens with Tri-Cities. Our commission has no say in what happens with Tri-Cities, nor does our advisory committee. Please phone call, all phone calls with regards to rates should go to the county commission.
With that, do I hear a motion to approve?
I move to approve Resolution 13-630, number 13-26, establishing the right-of-way usage fee rates and application fees for public utilities operating within the City of Oregon City's right-of-way.
Second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Smith made the motion and Commissioner Mumm seconded. The vote, please.
Commissioner Mumm,
Aye.
Commissioner Roth,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Pauley,
Aye.
and Mayor Neely.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
With that, we come to the bylaws of the Citizen Involvement Council. I'll get a staff report first.
Yes. Okay, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. The Citizen Involvement Council has completed the revision of its bylaws and approved the draft at their October 7th CIC meeting. The Commission discussed the history and the purpose of the CIC at its work session on October 8th and also on November 12th. Staff reported on November 12th that historically the City Commission has been the approval authority for boards and commissions that the Commission establishes. Since the revitalization of the CIC in 2009, the Commission has not reviewed the CIC bylaws, and the attached documents provide a picture of all the changes that have occurred in the operation of the CIC since 1977. Following a review of the comparison chart, the Commission may wish to make changes to the bylaws. However, during the review this week, our city attorney discovered that there was a section of the bylaws that was actually contrary to state law. And it's I revised a staff report and attached it to your monitors there. And I'm also submitting it as a for the record this evening with that explanation. And the section is Section 5 of Article 8, where it says that individual votes will not be revealed during an election, but will be filed with the city records with the minutes by the CIC liaison. So what it's saying is that they didn't want to make known the names of the persons who made a vote at an election. And that is contrary to state law in that it actually says that the vote of each member shall be by name. So if you are to approve the CIC bylaws, you just need to be aware there is a conflict there, and if you choose to approve them with the change, you would just remove this one sentence in Section 5. So with that,
Which article is it again?
It's Article 8, Section 5. And if it's written on your staff report, too, if you are.
Second sentence.
So removing the underlined sentence would.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Commissioners. The points were made that there were differences, pointed out the differences between the bylaws that are presented here and the bylaws that have existed in the past. None of them concern me greatly.
No.
No, thanks for the attorneys catching this, the anonymous piece. What I was going to suggest, is it just a case of deleting something, or does something else have to be?
If you wish to adopt, make a motion to adopt the draft rules with the exclusion of the second sentence in Article 5, Section 8, Section 5.
Okay. And I'll just read it. Individual votes will not be revealed, but will be filed in the city records with the minutes by the CIC liaison. I would be a little bit more specific, because in some of our well, actually the elections that occurred at one point and then they were canceled because they didn't follow the bylaws of the CIC, and then we had a problem at one of our neighborhood associations in terms of election that occur here, that perhaps we should basically speak to the fact that the votes have to be.
When we talked about this today, not today, over the weekend, the idea given to me was we ought to do as little as possible to change it and assume that state law will be followed.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's what, yeah.
Well, I suppose if it's made clear that that sentence means that they will be revealed.
The CIC is aware that they need to follow public records laws and public meetings laws.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So do I have a motion, perhaps with
Well-
the amendment, change that to section 5, that second sentence be
We
deleted?
do have somebody that wants to speak to this.
I don't know.
Yeah, we do.
Bob LaSalle, of
Bob.
course. Yeah, come forward.
Hi, Bob.
My name is Bob LaSalle. I'm a citizen of Oregon City, and you can call me salty if you want to.
Is that with oysters or without?
I are that.
Okay.
I was made aware of this legal issue last night, and I think I have a solution. Let me first explain the spirit of that change in the bylaws was to avoid the hassle and hard feelings that we had were a result of last December's votes. And I mean, that was a terrible situation. Thank goodness I can honestly say that I wasn't on the CIC at that time. So it wasn't during my watch. So we thought we had solved that problem, but I think I have a solution. If you refer to that sentence, it says individual votes will not be revealed, and I think we could insert at that time, at the time of the elections, but will be filed in the city records with the minutes by the CIC liaison, and then add individual voting members' names must be on their ballots to be counted.
I'm not sure that does it. And the reason is the specificity of state law, which says basically at the time that the vote is taken, you got to know who voted for what.
Because I read that differently here.
You had the statute there?
The results of all votes, except for public bodies consisting of more than 25 members, unless requested by a member of that body, the vote of each member by name. And where else was it that I saw? Here it is. ORS 192.650 states in part, all minutes or recordings shall be available to the public within a reasonable time after the meeting and shall include at least the following information and so on. So
The reasonable time is for the minutes.
Well, you're the attorney, so but I can't argue with you on that. I had my own personal interpretation was different.
I do understand that.
That's part of the process we have at public meetings. I mean, sometimes we get upset with each other the way we voted. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, right. The way it is.
And we usually get over it too.
Unfortunately, you
Sometimes.
unfortunately, you guys don't always agree that I'm always right. I don't understand you sometimes. Thank you.
So my question, Bob, is do you think the CIC is going to be okay with this? Or do you have to take it back?
Well, we have to follow law, so
Yes.
we have to be okay with it.
I would
I
think
mean,
so.
it's
You're
not
exactly.
necessarily happy with it.
Well, we're not all happy following all the rules, but the rules are the rules.
That's what my math teacher told me.
Was it Martha Schrader?
Probably not.
She's not that salty. Any other questions?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So do I hear a motion with a suggested strikeout?
Yes. Move to approve section 13-629 Citizen Involvement Council bylaws with
With the change suggested regarding striking the second sentence of Article 8, Section 5.
So,
Second?
Second.
No,
who was the second? I'm sorry.
I think Carol won, but I'm not sure.
Oh. Doesn't matter. I got Kathy's. I got Kathy.
You got Kathy. Well, that's fine. Anyway, the vote, please.
Commissioner Mum?
Aye.
Commissioner Roth?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Pauley?
Aye.
Mayor Neely?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Very good. Okay. With that, we're going to go to the personal services agreement with Wallace Engineering PLC for design and development of Lynn Avenue, Leland Road, and Myers Road corridor plan. Yay!
Yay. Yay.
Yay!
I live.
I'm so excited.
I use those more frequently than I used to.
Everybody does, I've
Yeah.
noticed.
Thank you,
Part of the issue.
Mayor and City Commissioners. So I this could have been on the consent agenda, but I asked David if we could talk through it shortly. Just kind of wanting to point out that when we've done a variety of projects in the area, if you remember the paving project on Leland up near between Warner Milne and Myers Road, we heard a lot of feedback from the community at that time that why couldn't you do more? We heard a lot during the transportation system plan about Lynn Avenue and just the unavailability of safe walking areas along Lynn Avenue from
Right.
5th to the Hilltop. And so, we were able to have conversations with some of you about the need to kind of move that thing forward. So, this project here, our TSP identifies several projects. So we've included that project list along this corridor and trying to piece all that together in a form that would make some sense and be implementable. A corridor plan similar to Malala Avenue, which is a 4-phase plan. There's distinct differences along this corridor that we'll have to address. There's some utility needs. There's certain areas along this corridor that aren't served with city sewer, so they're on septic systems. So trying to figure that out. Right-of-way widths for future right-of-way acquisition. So it's a key corridor for Oregon City. Like Malala, it carries a fair amount of traffic from the Hilltop from the south end of the city to downtown. And so we just think it's an outstanding project that's got a lot of community interest. My hope is that we'll be able to reach out to the communities, get a lot of ideas from them about what they would like to see. I do have some reservation about the fact that this is another one of those corridor projects that's kind of inner city. It's important to Oregon City, but it's debatable as to whether it's got regional significance. So this project, many of the projects that were listed in the TSP weren't actually identified for funding, or they were identified as unlikely to be funded. Some of these projects were identified to be funded, but not all of them. So as we move through the process, this project, in my mind, is something that, again, we'll want to be competing for funding with other jurisdictions in the future, and we've got several of those ready to go right now. We've got Park Place, who's interested in seeing Holcomb Boulevard and some more improvements done along Holcomb Boulevard. We've got Main Street, who'd like to see 10th to 15th. We've got Malala, which we just kind of took on recently, and then all those ODOT facilities that are down near the mill. So I would say that this is a plan that we can hold on to and use throughout the years coming. I don't want this to feel like we're going to see a construction project in the next couple of years. We may see pieces of it that would make sense and some things that we can afford to do. I think the other thing that we'll have to ask the community is, as we move forward, is this a project that's important to Oregon City and enough to do so to maybe come up with another mechanism for funding that might be associated with the citizens of Oregon City through a local improvement district or something like that. So I think it's a good project. We're working with Wallace Engineering, who we've done a lot of work with, and we recommend that authorize the city manager to sign the contract.
I just want to pose a question. Because those are pulled out, I'm going to make the assumption at the intersection of Leland Lynn and Central Point and
right.
Warner Parrott and Milne are going to be part of that corridor. Is that right?
That's right, and we've included some analysis of that. We've seen some preliminary sketches on that over the years, and we've hired. We haven't hired. The proposal includes some work by DKS, who's done some of that preliminary work. We want to that intersection and several of the others just kind of make sure that the tie-ins that we will need or need to expand would look right. So we'll see more to come on the roundabout or whatever kind of solution really kind of comes out of that. That'll all be part of the corridor study.
Mm-hmm. Very good. I've lived in places where roundabouts work very well in Stanley. And we have here on the list, and I'll take our commissioners first, of course. Carol Paul.
Motion on this?
No, we're going
to. On the.
We got people want to speak to it. Commissioner Pauly, Commissioner Munn, and then maybe other commissioners, and eventually we'll get to William.
Eventually. I think it's important to have a plan and to have it be a public process. I'm interested in hearing what our citizens have to say about that corridor. It's an example, like many. It's been done with growth. It's been done in pieces. I think it's important to have a congruent plan in place. And that corridor, having a corridor plan will enable us to get funding in grants as they come up if we already have a plan. We don't have a plan in place that inhibits our ability to take advantage of those opportunities. That corridor has changed throughout the years since I've lived here. There's been so many new neighborhoods built off of there, and traffic has increased. I can't even tell you how much. And it connects to 213, I think, so it is very important, and access to the college. So I'm very interested in seeing what comes out of the public process on this. Thank you.
So, John, I went through and printed out the list. Okay. So the first two you have identified as short-term, and that's Leland Road sidewalks infill and Lynn Avenue sidewalk infill, correct? So those would be your first, if we ever got funding for this, that would be your first priority, right?
That's the way they're listed in the transportation system plan.
Okay.
I think the transportation system plan is, again, in itself a bit of a concept plan. The phasing that's listed in that transportation system plan is really more about trying to spread the funding that's kind of perceived with growth. I would say it is short-term. We'll look at that. It'll be a consideration, but it's not guaranteed that that's the first piece that'll be built.
Okay, because then I went down here and I saw install a roundabout. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Right there on that goofy intersection. Mm-hmm. Personally, I'd like to see the roundabout over on Molalla Division and over in that area, Molalla Avenue. But
both of those intersections in the transportation system plan are shown as roundabouts, and phasing and timing of each of those is really up to the availability of funds. I agree the Molalla Avenue at Taylor and Division has been on our radar as a higher priority. So, it kind of depends on funding. I mean, if this project looks more attractive for whatever reason, assuming the decision-making bodies are following the criteria, then,
no guarantees on that.
Then maybe, another one project may look more attractive than the other. But,
okay.
I agree that Molalla roundabout has been on the drafting table a little bit longer.
For a long time.
And of course, that's not what's before us, but I will add, I guess, because you mentioned it, I'll come to others, but the Molalla, access to the hospital is
critical.
Is critical. It's important, and it's not currently good. And the hospital's expanding that. It's offering additional services. I don't know why they picked that place. It's so difficult to go to, but I'm glad they're here. But in any case. Okay, now I'll come to Commissioner Roth.
I may have answered my own question here. This only is Myers Road through the Lynn Avenue corridor. It doesn't doesn't come on down into 5th.
That's correct. Right now we're I think it's Jackson's the northerly end of the corridor study.
Okay, because I was looking at all of these pedestrian-activated flashers, and I thought, as someone that crosses that in the dark every morning, Fifth, we need some of those down this way too.
I don't remember. I don't remember what's in the TSP, but we just listed those projects that fell within this corridor, and there may be something shown for pedestrian-activated crossing on Fifth.
Thanks.
You be looking at speed limits as well? Well, let me come to the reason. This has been discussion before in earlier commissions, and we always got pushback from staff. Now, I'm just to take the example of Malala coming down to 7th. You have 35 miles an hour up in the hilltop area. As you go down the slope, it's 30. You hit 7th, it's 25. It's 35 all the way through this whole segment, all the way down to 7th, including the sloped area. And give them those cautionary speed limits that are 25 throughout there. I don't know why we don't have a 30-mile speed limit on that segment, the sloped area coming down Lynn. And that doesn't take any construction. I mean, that's just changing some signs.
It's an ODOT decision.
Yeah, the city can't.
We will.
But I don't think it ever. I never went to ODOT. The staff never presented it to ODOT.
When I was on the TAC, that came up, and we had a bunch of people from Lynn Avenue saying they wanted it changed, and ODOT said that's what they've decided to do.
Mayor, the corridor study will look at speeds. What my recollection, and this was before I took the position, but my recollection was there was, ODOT does do the speed studies, and there was a speed study that was done on a piece of Lynn, but I don't know. My recollection it was from Warner Parrott to Fifth.
To Fifth.
But I'll look for that and see what those results were. But
I don't think it has to go all the way up to Warner Parrott.
Well, I mean that's the limits that ODOT looked at, and they based their, as you recall, they based their establishment of speed limits on the 85th percentile.
Yep.
And just as someone who uses that roadway as well, my sense is people, because of the grade, can do 35 miles an hour on there, and so that 85th percentile falls right in there. So that's
it was right.
ODOT doesn't necessarily take into consideration that there aren't sidewalks.
No.
Right, and then it's on a bus line, and there's people standing right.
So we will look at that. I'm not saying it's right or wrong at this point. I'm just saying that'll be part of our study.
I'll have something to say during Mayor's comments. And we'll go on and have William. Are you still on?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. William Gifford come forward.
You sure you guys are finished?
No.
We could go on.
You might stimulate something entirely.
It might go on and on and on.
Commissioners, my name is William Gifford. I live in Oregon City. I'm really, really excited about this project because I just think that is one of the least coherent corridors that we have in the city.
Yeah.
I can't explain it any better than that. I'm also excited about a roundabout in that area that is just off the top of my head. I think that is the corner point of 4 neighborhood associations. There's Hillendale, Rivercrest, South End, Tower Vista.
Yep. It is.
Yeah, it's a unique intersection in many respects, and I think it's horribly confusing. It's confusing to me sometimes driving through there as to which one of these lanes to go to if you want to go this way. Anyway, so
I just go around a couple times.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it'll be easier when it's a roundabout because then you can just, if you missed it, you just get it the next time around. I want to point out that I think that I'm also anxious to get a roundabout up on Division 2, but I think that we have to keep in mind that those could be separately funded projects. I would not like to look at those as mutually exclusive, one or the other. And speaking of funding, and I've spoken with Mr. Lewis about this, I hope that the city has some opportunity to investigate the state program of Safe Routes for Schools, and maybe we can get some money from that. And I understand some studies have to be done regarding that, and maybe we can get connection with the school district to determine that, because there's a lot of kids that try to walk up and down that street with the disconnected sidewalks. I would be a big proponent for getting this done as soon as possible and finding as much money as we can to do that. One little caveat about the whole project, however, and I didn't mention this to John. I'm concerned. I have a concern for smooth, easy to drive on streets. Make it also easier to drive faster and more enticing for more traffic. That is to say, I would expect that if we had a smooth corridor coming down Leland Myers down to 5th, that there would be more traffic on it, for one thing. And my suspicion is, because there are fewer hazards, I would expect it would be better lit and so on, that it would be conducive to higher speeds. And that kind of funnels down onto 5th Street. And having been chair of McLaughlin, I know that the issue has been that speed that coming around the corner down there. And I'm sorry, ODOT, this is not your city. This is our city, and I think that we should have more say about how we can control that speed coming down there. But I think it could be exacerbated by having a smooth corridor down there. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
So are you making a case for our leaving potholes?
I beg your pardon?
Are you making a case for us leaving the potholes and things?
I have an alternate solution to that. I'll be happy to talk about offline.
That'll slow the traffic down.
Yeah.
Well, it's a two-edged sword.
First of all, let me say I appreciate you pulling it off the consent agenda. It's an area of interest to us. And, at one point, and I think I understand them, but you might want to have a discussion, whether it's in some kind of work session, about what local improvement district is, how that's a potential funding source. And if it's in fact as a junction of 4 neighborhood associations, we might be able to get a lot of citizen interest in that.
I think so. It is a confusing area.
So, are we willing to take action on the item?
Move to approve 13-619.
Second?
Personal service agreement.
Second
Okay, good.
that.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Mom?
Aye.
Commissioner Roth?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Pauley?
Aye.
Mayor Neely?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Good. Now, I think I know where we are, but I got to get onto the agenda. There we go. That means there's nothing on the consent agenda, so there is nothing to be pulled, so I don't even want to ask for it in the first place. Communications, city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it was a little over a year ago, you remember, or just actually a little less than a year ago, you remember our friend Mike McCarroll passed away suddenly and unexpectedly. And I have been working with the chamber for the past just about a year on trying to come up with the right memorial for Mike's memory, both in my service on the chamber board and then from the city's perspective. The city, with our Public Works Department, I really want to thank John for this, and also Scott Archer. We found a location where we can plant an oak tree, a memorial oak tree, a specimen tree, and it's originally we had looked at Kenema Park, and we weren't sure how much exposure people would have there because it's more of a neighborhood park and and it's not got a lot of visitors, and I think we wanted a little more prominent location with a single tree. And so John has found a location for us. I presented that to the chamber director, and they're really enthusiastic about us doing that. There would also be a marker. So at some point in the future, we'll have a ribbon cutting. We'll ask all of you to come if you can. Sure. And then, as you know, our chamber awards dinner is not that far away. It seems like it was just yesterday, but it's here again. And so today, the chamber has a committee. Ray Stobie is on the committee, Amber Holvac, and today Mike's wife, Debbie, came. And they met with 2 local artists from Oregon City, and they are going to develop we had the idea based around the Stanley Cup, but it's not going to be a Stanley Cup because we have artists and they don't do things that way. So, but I think you're going to really like I don't want to spill the beans too much, but there's going to be a fashioned out of metal, some kind of an award that looks a lot like an oak tree, or some semblance of an oak tree. And then it'll have branches coming off of it, and it'll have leaves on there, and each of the leaves will have 7 virtues that we think most best define Mike and what he gave to our community. There'll be things like service, integrity, things like that on each of the leaves. And then the name of Mike's wife and each of his children will be among the permanent leaves that are fixed on the tree. And all I did was come up with a Stanley Cup word and the oak tree thing, and Ray Stobie and other very creative people took off from there, so I can't take credit for this. But the other leaves on there will be, there's a steel fabricator artist who works with that medium, and then there's a glass artist. And I bet you guys know these folks. I have their cards, but I can't remember all the particulars. But the glass artist has then leaves that are made out of glass, but they're shaped like oak leaves, and they look pretty realistic. And they're in colors like amber and red and yellow, all the colors of autumn. And they will be, and then each year as somebody receives this award, there will be a glass leaf that's engraved with their name and date. And that leaf will then be placed on the tree. So there'll be some permanent leaves, and then there'll be all these open branches where the leaves can be filled in over the years. And after, I think it's about 8 or 10 years, your leaf will be retired, and the winner will get their leaf displayed permanently on a board at the chamber as one of these people. And the chamber is actually taking its top, I think they call it Citizen of the Year or something, but they're naming their award after Mike. And then I have the obligation apparently to present the award this year. And what was most important to us was having Debbie there. And then on the heels of trying to cope with Officer Lipke's loss and trying to think, Jim and I have been talking about all the different ways. We've just been inundated, the mayor and I and all of us, with folks who want us to do something to honor Officer Lipke that's more permanent than a procession. And we're real excited about that. We just wanted to give a few days for the emotional healing to begin, especially with his family, because we want them to be really part of it. So it brought on to me this idea that, hey, I've got some experience with this now. But it's a whole different award and a different set of circumstances. But I wanted you to know that I had been working on that with this committee for over the past year, and it looks like we're going to have a really fun solution that the family's very excited about it. And Debbie, at one point, we were trying to come up with these virtues, and she was really quiet. And I sort of called her. I said, "You're the one that we really want to hear from in the room." And she said, "Mike would just be overwhelmed by what you guys are doing." And this was her first meeting that she'd come to. So hopefully we'll have a similar experience later in Officer Lipke's memorial. The next thing I want to mention is that you have a city commissions meeting scheduled for a not very convenient time this year on January 2nd, the day after New Year's. And so it's been brought to my attention that might not be the ideal time for you to have a meeting. And you also have some Willamette Falls Legacy Project meetings in January. So you're going to have a pretty busy calendar in January. And that being the day after New Year's Day, I just wanted to ask your permission if we can not have that meeting. But it's not my decision to make, so it'll be up to the commission.
We're going to probably have the goals revisitation get together during January.
Well, we're trying to figure out when to do that in light of the Willamette Falls project. And so I'm trying to figure out if we can squeeze that into January. Can I do it in a work session or with a memo or what? I haven't talked to any of you about that, but we're going to work on a goals report that we might distribute. And then if the commission thinks it's necessary, then we could have that. But you definitely want to keep on track with the Willamette Falls project. So, but we need some, I think, direction tonight on what to do with the January 2nd meeting. So,
I'm okay with canceling it if there's no business that needs to be tended to.
At this point in time, there is not. The only thing that we generally have on the first of the year is our boards and committees. We would do that. We could potentially do them on the 18th of December if they're for those that are ready to go. and the rest could be on the second meeting, which is, I think, like the 15th of the month. So it's not very far into the month.
Okay.
So that would work.
Do we know when our retreat is?
It's scheduled for the 25th, but like Mr. Frazier was just saying, he would like to speak with you further about that, possibly doing it at a work session or through a memo.
Because remember, this would be a goals update because you have 2-year retreats now. So every other year, right after elections, city council, city commission elections, that's when you have your retreat, and then there's a midterm update of where we are. So it's not that full-blown weekend thing. It would be It would be
it's just a
half a day, maybe on a Saturday.
on a just an update.
Right.
So
Right. Because we've got a lot of the goals checked off, actually.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of them that aren't quite done yet. They're 90% baked, like Ermatinger, or there's others that are going to be ongoing, as you know. But we still want to update you. It just kind of depends on how and when, what format we use for that. So maybe be thinking about that as well, and we'll check back in when we get the quarterly report done. So no objections then to not having the January 2nd meeting?
No.
Okay. That's all I have to say, Your Honor.
Okay. I'm just going to make a comment. Those that you did not know Mike Carroll, he was very active in various entities. He was with Minuteman Press, right?
Yes.
And he was named Business Person of the Year in the last meeting, in the last dinner, Chamber of Commerce annual dinner. And he was not there to accept the award because he'd gone into the hospital. And within, I think, 24 or 48 hours of leaving the hospital, was it a heart attack? Or he had a massive heart attack and died. So none of us got to see him again after that. I'll just make a comment. I go into, David's one of these people. He's just got to show baby pictures. And in his office, he's got a picture of his wife and his baby. But he has a picture of one other person. He's got Mike Carroll, Ian McCarroll, on his desk there. And I think that's
my wife.
I said your wife and baby.
Okay.
Yes, I mentioned that. But the only other picture he has is not of me, but it's of Mike Carroll, and it shows tremendous respect he had throughout the whole community. Yeah. So this is great.
Yeah, he set an amazing example.
He did.
Yes, he
Burned
did.
a very bright light in a very short period of time.
And he didn't even live here, but
No.
yet he was so dedicated to the
Unbelievable.
community that his business was in.
And apparently he was very
He gave so
committed
much.
to activities of the North Clackamas Chamber as well.
Oh yes.
Yeah. I'm going to say something I should have spoke to earlier, but it didn't occur to me to be real important until just now. At the League of Oregon Cities conference that I attended, I went to one on transportation. The Oregon Department of Transportation, starting January 1, will have a resolution of conflict where a municipality agrees on a decision that ODOT has made. ODOT has always been the one to resolve the issue. They're going to start January 1st having an independent entity that resolves those issues. So there might be things that we've been interested in getting moving that we'll be able to do so. So I wanted to mention that. Within the last 2 weeks, both Chair Ledlow had a meeting with all the mayors in Clackamas County, and the principal thing that he was talking about was some kind of a fee for maintenance in unincorporated Clackamas County is the topic that it centered on. And the Metro Chair, the Metro Regional Government's Chair, also had a meeting with county chairs and mayors in this 2-week period. A lot of that focus was in the membership of the Metro Policy Advisory Committee, which we have a seat because we're the second largest city in the county, and each county commission appoints a citizen rep, and there was some question as to whether all the people on the Metro Policy Advisory Committee, whether they should all be elected officials or not, as opposed to some appointed officials. They also having seats, or the special districts have seats, and of course the boards of special districts are elected. One of the concerns was whether the representatives of the districts communicated with the other districts that they're supposed to represent. This question has come up sometimes in terms of the representation from the county cities. The largest city has a seat, the second largest city has a seat, and then a representative from the small cities has a seat. It really hasn't been an issue in recent times, but oftentimes the representative from the small city never communicated with the other small city. In the case of Oregon, Clackamas County, that's not the case. Jody Carson is our rep, and she's always there at the C4 meetings, so she's always getting input from the other cities. And it used to be a problem in Clackamas County. It used to be a problem in Washington County too, but that's no longer the case there. But that was the major item that we wanted to discuss with the chair. Another thing was mentioned that at the first meeting I'll be making appointments to advisory committees. If any of you, I've assigned you to different committees and so forth. If any of you want to serve on a different one, or feel you'd be unable to serve the one I've assigned you on, could you let me know? If you want to serve on another one, perhaps could have a discussion with the person that I have assigned and see if you want to have a switch or not.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, and that'll be before. If you could let me know before. Well, actually, if you could let me know, send me an email by the second of January. Since you won't be going to a commission meeting, you can take some time to send me an email, and then I can make those appointments at our meeting in January. Okay. Anybody else? I bet you do.
Sure. Just
There's one I would cover, but she was there.
Which one?
Legacy.
Oh, yes, that too. There's two things. So the Legacy Partners meeting went very well, as it always does. Lots of information with the public input process, the master planning process. We got to see some renderings, kind of the culmination of ideas that have come forth through that process. It was very exciting. And the partners are working together so well. And I'm so impressed with all the pieces just coming together. And it feels very, very solid. And it's going to be exciting to see the master plan and the finished product for that. So the other thing is Main Street update, and Jonathan's here. He could actually talk about that. But there's 2 board seats up, and so we're taking applications for people that would like to assume those seats. So we're going forward with a very open process, and it's an exciting time for Main Street. Do you want to add anything? Can he add anything?
I sure can.
Okay.
It's right now. You're in charge. So
Okay.
Bring him up.
Jonathan, would you like to add anything?
Well, so far.
Jonathan is our new Main Street director, executive director of the program.
And resident of Oregon City.
And resident of Oregon City.
And your full name, please.
Jonathan Stone. In fact, I'm flying back to Boston to officially move tomorrow morning.
Yes.
So we've actually had 2 applications so far. So we will, assuming that they pass the nomination test of the nomination committee, will at least be filling the seats. But there's a possibility that there may even be a voting or election process that will need to take place, which will be interesting to see how that plays out at our annual meeting on the 10th.
Your bylaws cover elections?
They do now.
Good.
Yes, our annual meeting's on the 10th.
Yes, the annual meeting is on the 10th at 9 a.m., and you're all welcome to attend at the holding cell at Verdict.
Nice.
Thank you.
Nice location.
Thank you.
Somebody else?
I'll go.
I saw Commissioner Smith first.
Fine.
I want to keep balance between the left and the right.
Whatever.
On
You like him better than me.
You.
Okay, so Monday night we had another. Monday night had another Oregon City Tourism Council meeting. At the last meeting, I kind of told you about my frustration at a previous meeting for the Tourism Council. The meeting started at 4:30 on Monday. I got there at 5, which I was happy about to some degree because the first half hour ended up being a discussion about the previous meeting and about the comments that I made at the previous meeting. So, they had a discussion. I think the discussion is still continuing in terms of what the Oregon City Tourism Council really sees as moving forward and trying to make some hopefully better decisions and broader decisions about really focusing on tourism. I think it's part of what brought Marge's comments tonight at the beginning of the meeting. I do want to see at least some discussion in absence of a goals retreat. I do want to have somewhat of a discussion about tourism when we revise our goals, or at least update our goals. But if it doesn't get really put onto our target in the next goals cycle, I think that's definitely something we need to start addressing in a far better way than we have. One, because as we all heard tonight with the candidates for the Urban Renewal Commission, everyone knows that this is the time, and it's so exciting to hear all these people come and talk about how excited they are about having the opportunity to sit on a commission that most of us sometimes wonder if we want to show up to the meetings. But it shows such a it's so exciting. It's so exciting to see people that interested in what's going on in Oregon City with all these projects that are coming to the forefront. And we all know that this is the time. We all know that this is where Oregon City is going to become whatever it is to become. And to be a part of that is crucial. And making all those pieces work together, economic development, Main Street, tourism, is crucial. We haven't got it right yet, but we got to get it right. And so I hope that, especially from the city's point of view, that we really step up and try to help drive a discussion between all the parties that are really necessary and how we want to see tourism move forward in Oregon City. So I hope that continues. Tomorrow night, I have the Oregon City Heritage Coordinating Committee meeting, which is also another tourism heritage group, tomorrow night. Our South Fork Water Board meeting is tomorrow night. We moved it from last Thursday because of the celebration of life for Officer Libke, so our normal South Fork meeting was moved to this Thursday. And I just wanted to update you, Clackamas Heritage Partners, we've continued to meet. They are in the process of working on some new grants for some projects, continuations of some of the projects that they're working on. And so when that grant gets submitted, I'll share that with you, or when I have more information about that. I'm still reading it right now, but I'll update the commission with that. And that's it.
Anything? Anybody else?
I do, but Betty was next, wasn't she?
Yeah, I've just been on there a while. He just doesn't like. Okay, so is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Left, right, left?
Left, right, left. Okay, C4 meeting. As you had said, the Clackamas County commissioners have a shortfall for funding for the roads in the unincorporated Clackamas County. They need about $15 million. And at the C4, we have been meeting and discussing a countywide transportation fund initiative. So all of the cities and the county have to come together to get this passed because it has to go before the voters. And now we kind of have this little wrinkle about the county commissioners wanting to either develop a district within the non-city or establish a utility fee, which PGE would be collecting for them of $9.90 per month for the unincorporated areas. So not sure where we're going to end up with this countywide transportation fund. I know that originally John, or I think it might have been Nancy, talked, and what we were going to do as a city was take the money and put it on capital projects because we have the payment maintenance fee. So the other thing that we found out is the vehicle registration fee that was going to be a revenue that we could pursue. It has to have the county involvement, and the county gets 60%, and the cities all have to share 40%. So we may not get a lot. So a lot of that is kind of on hold. If you don't have it, if you haven't seen the presentation out front, you guys should check it out. It's very good. Ed and Randy set it up. And then the last thing I have is at the work session last Tuesday, it was brought to my attention that the little yellow card that went out to all of the residents said the meeting was going to start at 5:30, and we actually started at 5, and people were a bit miffed. So we just need to keep it, that consistent. So if you guys notice that, we just need to make sure that we're advertising the correct times for our meetings.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have.
Right.
Okay. Kathy,
mine's really small.
The other favorite donor.
I'm the right-hand man.
Oh, I forgot.
Not that old.
I had a really great experience Saturday morning. I was asked to be a judge at the VFW for a series of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who wrote essays on patriotism, and high school students who gave audio CDs of patriotism.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was just blown away by almost every single one of them, and the seriousness that the kids took with these essays. There's one, they're giving the awards Friday night for the scholarships and giving them at a dinner, and it's going to be really a big privilege for me to meet some of these kids. So it was a wonderful experience.
Very good.
I have one thing I neglected to say. The Willamette Falls Legacy Project, it's not too late to be part of the process. Please visit the website at www.rediscoverthefalls.com to get information about the master planning process and to get the dates of events. I know there's a big community event coming up. I don't have my calendar in front of me. That's what you get when you...
I bet you Mr. Conkle could come up with it.
Oh, come on, Doug, give me another minute. Almost made it.
Is it January 14th?
I think one thing is that you can still go online and take the survey.
Yes.
And then...
But this is a public process, so I encourage everybody to get involved and go on the website. There's a lot of good information on there. That's the Willamette Falls Legacy Project, the old Blue Heron Mill site. Thank you.
With that, actually, I'm going to make one other comment. Well, I was able to, went on to a Metro had, for its Metro Advisory Committee, had a tour of the zoo It wasn't a tour of the whole zoo. It was a tour of those areas that have completed or are working on or will be doing under the most recent bond that was passed. And it was very exciting. Elephants are going to have a bigger area. Things are going to happen for the polar bear. Things have already happened for the condors. Things have already happened for the penguins. They're going to have an education center. They've invested in a tremendous veterinary quarters, and we were really impressed. It was sterile, clean, and everything else. And it looks like they're spending our bond money that we voted in very, very well.
Good.
And with that, I guess anything else for the good of the order? Yes, we're going to adjourn into a urban renewal executive session.
December 12th? December 12th.
Need to
Oh.